All right. Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. I'm Siobhan Hall, your host for today, as we explore the Inflation Reduction Act and how it's shaking up the industry, especially with the new federal price negotiations that will transform pharmacy operations and prescribing patterns. We'll take questions towards the end of today's presentation. Simply ask your questions using the chat feature, and we'll do our best to answer them as time permits. If any questions happen to go unanswered, one of our experts will follow up with you after the webinar. We are thrilled to have John Grice, PharmD, here to break down these groundbreaking changes and reveal how outcomes can help pharmacies stay ahead of the curve. John is a third-generation pharmacist and has owned multi-store chains, retail, and long-term care pharmacies. He's now bringing his extensive pharmacy experience to oversee reporting and insights for our products here at Outcomes. We're very fortunate to have him on board, as his wealth of knowledge is truly invaluable. With that, I'll go ahead and hand it over to you, John.
Sounds good. Thanks, Siobhan. Yeah, I'm excited to talk to everybody today. Thanks for joining us here. IRA, the Inflation Reduction Act, what comes out of that? How does that impact pharmacy? We're just digging into it. It's been developing for a bit. A few of you have probably heard a talk or two maybe. And so hopefully some of the basics are already getting digested and understood. I'm hoping to reiterate some of those basics and then maybe build on it with a few strategies. If you've been reading our blog, we've put a couple of articles out that kind of go into a little deeper dive of some numbers and metrics and things, but we'll get right into it. So as Siobhan said, I'm John Grice. I'm a VP of Pharmacy Insights here for Outcomes. And one of our goals here at Outcomes is delivering clinical outcomes through connected technologies. So our pharmacy management software, our Outcomes MTM platform, bringing together the companies has really enabled this goal of being able to deliver clinical outcomes. And today what we're talking about is actually a pricing change that's going to be affecting pharmacies everywhere as Medicare begins negotiating prices with manufacturers. So a little bit of background, the timeline of this rollout. Back in 23, CMS published the guidance on how the process would go. And by August, they had selected 10 drugs that were going to be negotiated. And then through 24, they did those negotiations with manufacturers, basically deciding what a maximum fair price would be. So MFP is going to be an acronym that we use a lot. We're all used to AWP or WAC, WAC, AWP, MAC. There's a lot of alphabet soup of acronyms in pharmacy pricing files that we all know. MFP is going to be a new one. So they've been established and shared out what the drugs are, what those price points are going to be. And in 2026 is when those prices will begin taking effect. So January 1, what we used to bill through for Eliquis, as an example, is going to get paid differently than it did just the day before for a Medicare patient, because that's when the new negotiated price is going to go into effect. Going forward from there, they're going to continue the process, moving through the largest usage or largest dollar amounts. So 27, there should be 15 additional drugs, 28, another 15, and then in 2029, we're told there's 20 more going forward each year after that. Here is a model that's been proposed, and I have to say it that way because there's still enough vagueness in how does this get done that's not being fully described yet. But to start to get pharmacists and pharmacy owners thinking about, well, what does this mean and how do we do it? There's a model that's doing its best to describe a retrospective funding for it. So basically, as you can see, the pharmacy is down there in the lower right corner. The patient is all the way to the right. The pharmacy is at the lower right corner of what looks like a square. And basically, if a pharmacy buys a drug for $100, but the MFP for that drug is only, say, $60, there's going to be $12 that comes from the patient and $48 that comes from the plan. Then there's got to be $40 to make the pharmacy whole. $40 more is going to come from the manufacturer somehow. And those numbers are rounded. They're generalized, absolutely not anywhere in stone yet. So don't quote me on either the price itself or the margin. You might be asking, okay, we paid 100, we only got 100. Where's the margin in that drug? And I'm with you. I think those answers will be coming this fall as Part D networks plans are getting put together. We should be able to learn more about what will the reimbursement rates look like. There's a lot more to come, but in general, the reason I wanted to show this is to get us at least understanding. Okay, so when we dispense a drug, not all of the payment for that drug is coming from insurance and patient, like it has been for a lot of years. Patient copay, insurance reimbursement, together they make up the sum total of what we get paid for that script. There's going to be a new portion coming, and that's going to be the manufacturer portion. So there's a couple other things to mention here. There's an MTF-DM and an MTF-PM. Data module and payment module is what those stand for, and it basically means there are a couple of data centers, or basically facilitators of information, that are going to be needed to facilitate the data exchange and also then the payment flows. That's what's going to be relevant to pharmacies the soonest here. So starting in June, we can get signed up with the DM that we're going to need. Don't know who they are yet. Obviously, June is coming soon, but hopefully by about mid-June, we should have it announced, or at least be hearing where to go and who to sign up with in order to be part of an MTF DM, so that all pharmacies can be included in the data here. So what's it mean? Cash flow implications is what I want us to be thinking about in pharmacy. Obviously, you guys have probably heard the old adage, right? Revenue's vanity, profit sanity, and cash is king. Now the world's going cashless everywhere, but that doesn't mean that cash flow is not an important concept. And so the cash crunch that may come when you get the $12 from the patient right up front and the $48 from the insurance company, maybe 7, maybe 14, maybe a couple more days later. If you don't get the 40 from the manufacturer that we talked about on the last slide in a reasonable or quick enough amount of time, it could put a significant cash crunch on a business. And so what we're looking at right now is we need to be enrolled and be understanding as early and as best as we can. There's a link to this here that we can probably put in the chat, but there's a Medicare page that CMS has stood up for getting more information and where you can go to begin having them send updates to you as soon as they're available. And so, like I mentioned, in June is when we want to have everybody start looking to get registered with that data module. And then starting in about November and December, I think it's going to be wise to shrink our inventory. As we look at some of these drugs, some of the ways that manufacturers may respond to these prices going into effect, there's a number of different directions they can go. And we dig into that a little more in the blog, but some of the drugs have already dropped the WAC. So the total price of an insulin like Novolog has already come way down, very close to the MFP. But are other drugs going to follow suit? And we don't know those answers yet. And so what I'd hate to have happen is a pharmacy that keeps, maybe 6 bottles of a drug on the shelf, that it's all worth, that top dollar. If the price, the overall price of that drug drops January 1st, then that will have looked like, that'll basically be shrink. That'll be expensive inventory that was bought at a higher price than what it's going to get dispensed at for any other payers as well. Best way to do that is MedSync. If you can be focused on synchronizing all of the Medicare patients that are on these particular meds, that's going to be the best way to be able to predictively know when they're going to be due for a refill, so that you can stay ahead of it. We don't want to shrink inventory and risk losing customers or turning folks away saying we can't provide these meds. But it's going to be more about, can I have a just-in-time inventory like other industries do? And for these meds, it's going to be, I think, key to take that mindset starting in November and in December to make sure that it all gets returned cleanly, and that you're able to have that MedSync report telling you when you're going to need that reordered in. And then starting in January, as you go through the first maybe 30 days of this, we'll all be learning a lot. There's going to be a lot learned right away of what those reimbursement rates are. Like I said, what happened to the WAC on January 1st, what the new pricing is to replenish and to reorder. But pay extra attention to reconciliation in that first 30 days. So when we see the claim, the 12 copay came right at the register, the 48 came 10 to 14 days later, but then we see the 40 come trickling in maybe right after, maybe not. That's what's going to be important in the early days, to know where your money is coming from. So paying extra attention through the first few months of this rollout is going to be really important. There's another piece to this that I think is worth mentioning, talking about, and starting to have conversations around, and that's the wholesale side. So I put down here a couple of thoughts. There may be other developments happen. We've got more than 6 months before this takes effect, so there's a lot that could still be developing and getting talked about. But just from a pharmacy owner perspective, the things I would start having conversations with my wholesaler about might include, what about extended dating on these particular brands? Is there any option for that? Is there flexibility in my contract, or is there some way that I can ask, give up something else to ask for that, to just extend out the dating that you have to pay for the drug until all the money has been received to pay for it? What role will they anticipate playing with the payment modules? As every wholesaler is buying drug, daily, consistently from these pharma manufacturers, there's a money exchange already in place with them. Are they anticipating playing a role in any of those boxes I talked about before of the PM? Because it would make sense, just as an early, who fits these boxes, who plays this role the best? I thought about them, and so I think it's worth bringing up and asking them. Also, how will this affect generic ratios? One of the things we don't know is what the net price that the wholesalers will be charging, and how that changes our contracts. Every contract's a little bit different. Some have rebates. Rebates are built in based on total volume purchases. Well, if total volume goes down because some of these drugs drop in price, how's that going to affect a rebate? Or nope, has nothing to do with total volume. It's a generic to brand ratio. There's all sorts of things, and I don't need to try to talk through all the different scenarios, but those are good questions for your wholesaler. When you do, though, just because I've got wholesaler friends, I want us to all be a little bit patient. They didn't ask for this. They're not the ones that are probably going to benefit out of this. Be gracious with your wholesaler friends. Don't try to beat them up over what we don't know yet, but ask them curious, and they'll be a partner. So see how they can help you work through this stuff. So also related to your wholesaler, of course, most of the time anyways, is your PSAO. Asking them a few questions, getting the conversation going will either maybe help all of you come to new answers, or at least have you prepared, learning what your PSAO will do or be. I listed a couple questions here. So what role are they planning to play in the PM piece that we just talked about? Does this change any of the provider manuals? Are there going to be Med D changes that we don't know about, that they oversee for you in those provider manuals? And then when will we know what those contract rates will be? Like I mentioned, I anticipate that'll be sometime in the fall, when all of the Part D plans are kind of finalized and the rates are announced. Asking them now doesn't hurt. They may have a better answer here soon than having to wait till the fall, and then we can start to prepare and analyze our business a little more based off of that. So the next steps, I'd like to have everybody looking at your outcomes account as a resource as well. In Insights, we have reports that you can run to analyze your top dispensing, your profitability, and all of those things. We are working on adding a manufacturer fair pricing report right now, and what that'll be is basically all of these drugs are going to be, their multiple different NDCs are going to be loaded in as filters so that you can run it based on either a month or a quarter snapshot of how many of these drugs does my pharmacy dispense, and get a lot better sense for, okay, well, I dispense a lot, but maybe not all of them are Medicare, and whatever else. There's a ton of different scenarios there that just having a report dedicated to those drugs so you don't have to build it yourself is what we're going to have finished up here soon. And I'll caveat that to say if you were to click into it right now, you probably wouldn't find it there yet. But also follow our blog. We did a 3-part series, pushed it out here in May just to get some of the early information primed and out there. There'll be more though, I'm sure, as this rolls out. Hopefully Outcomes plays a role more than just supporting you with information, and we'll just have to wait and see where everything goes with that. But follow our blog, and hopefully we're going to continue providing some meaningful insights. Like I said, not just insights to learn, but to use and take action with, and that's our goal. So with that, I'm through the slides, and I'd love to be able to have this, have it be a chat to some extent. Are there any questions out there? Anybody got any thoughts about this that we can discuss here?
Yeah, we got a couple coming in right now. Let's see. We do a lot of LTC. Do you think our number will be 22,000 more or less?
Good question. Long-term care pharmacy, primarily older population, more likely to be Medicare. So I would bet most of the dispensings of these drugs are going to be for Medicare patients, and usually an LTC pharmacy is a higher volume. I would bet that means you're probably going to have a higher number. That number that we produced in the index was, or in the blog, was really about the average. That was just pulling numbers across the entire Outcomes network of pharmacies. And so I'm sure we're going to have all sizes of large and small volumes in there. So LTC, generally being a larger dispenser, is probably going to have more than $22,000 of cash tied up in potentially coming later. That's what that number is representing. And yeah, like I said, repeating myself here, but would be likely larger for an LTC pharmacy.
Thank you. All right, another one here. Has it been determined that the PM payments do or don't have to follow the 14-day prompt pay rule currently in place?
To my knowledge, it has not. Last I had read on the CMS web that I didn't have a good answer.
Oh, sorry about that. Can you repeat that?
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay, good.
I do now.
Yeah, no, unfortunately, the answer I have to give is no, it hasn't been clarified fully yet, at least from what I've read and found. There's not a strict timing that they're going to be held to, like some other states and payers are held to.
Great, thank you. Let me see here. We have another one. So their pharmacy already has a robust sync program. What does that mean for them?
Probably means you're ahead of the curve. If you've already got MedSync in place, my assumption would also then be, you know your patients, you know their plans, and not only that, you may already have your inventory whittled down. The goal of having that MedSync, again, is to say, I know, we'll say Mrs. Jones is due for, again, we'll say Eliquis on Friday. I'm going to order that on Thursday and dispense it as soon as the order gets here. And that's the heart of MedSync. That's also going to be the just-in-time inventory that kind of kicks off those two timers of when you pay for it and when you get paid for it, starts them simultaneously.
Awesome. And looks like we have one more. Is this like every other government thing and it's just going to get pushed back?
Question. You're right. Yeah, there's a lot of that happens. Best answer I would say is I don't think so. This one has to do with pricing, not just a standards. We see a lot of times the standards do get pushed back. and that's a blanket word. I'm covering a lot of things there of what usually gets pushed back. But because it's pricing related, and because it's been a couple of years of activity happening leading up to it, with the prices are set, they've got goals, maybe not deadlines, but goals of when registration will happen and when these particular aggregators and modules will be established. My gut's telling me no, we got to be ready for this one January 1st. I just think it's going to end up staying on track.
Awesome. Thank you. We just got another one, and I may need to answer this one, but they're asking if you need to have outcomes premium to get the report. And to my understanding, no, you do not. In order to use insights within the outcomes platform, you just need to have an outcomes platform account.
Perfect. Good. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I think that is it. So again, just a reminder, if you have any questions or if you want to learn more, go ahead and scan that QR code and we'll follow up with you after the meeting. You will receive a recording of the webinar and a survey. So please fill it out. Let us know how we did and if there's anything we can do to improve our webinar moving forward. Thank you, John. Really appreciate it. Very insightful.
Same. Thanks, Siobhan. Thank
Have a
you,
good
everybody.
one.
Have a good
Bye.
day.